they said the ruling party was suffering from ideological zigzags and open dominance of neoliberal right-wing politics were characterizing the ruling party at the time. The ruling party was suffering from lack of integrity and credibility, and it was alienating anything that was advancing a left perspective. The trade union was compromised. The Communist Party was compromised. The youth movement was killed. The Women's League was co-opted into the agenda of neoliberalism. South Africa at the time was characterized by a kleptocracy, where those who were aligned with the government of the day could not face prosecution for their corruption. We observed all of this and decided that we cannot sit back and allow the continuation of the deterioration of state of affairs in our country. And inspired by the Cuban 26 July movement, decided to form an organization on the 26th of July 2013 and called it the EFF. So we thought as we celebrate its 10 years today, we must share some few moments with the international community, which gets to learn about the EFF from a hostile neoliberal media, which creates an impression that the EFF is an organization that is characterized by violence, but is not different from all other anarchist organizations, that the EFF cannot be relied upon because it is not based on anything tangible. But members of the diplomatic committee, you should know that the EFF is a Marxist, Leninist, and Fanonian organization, meaning we subscribe to the ideological and theoretical framework of these scholars and revolutionaries in terms of how we seek to forge a revolution and govern our society. We are an internationalist, radical, militant, and non-sexist and a Pan-Africanist organization, and we operate under the principle of socialism. The EFF is a leftist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist movement with an internationalist outlook anchored by popular grassroots formation and struggles. The EFF is the vanguard of community and worker struggles and will always be on the side of the people. As an organization, we take lessons from the notation that political power without economic emancipation is meaningless. As a result, this movement is inspired by ideals that promote the practice of organic forms of political leadership, which appreciate that political leadership at whatever level is service, not an opportunity for self-enrichment and self-gratification. As we already mentioned, we draw inspirations from the broad Marxist-Leninist traditions and Fanonian schools of thought in their analysis of the state, imperialism, culture, and class contradictions in every society. EFF is a South Africa's movement with a progressive internationalist outlook which seeks to engage with global progressive movements. We believe that the best contribution we can make in the international struggle against global imperialism is to rid our country of imperialist domination. For the South African struggle, the EFF pillars for economic emancipation are the following: expropriation of South Africa's land without compensation for equal redistribution in use, nationalization of mines, banks, and other strategic sectors of the economy without compensation, building state and government capacity which will lead to the abolishment of tender system, free quality education, healthcare, houses, and
sanitation. To all our viewers, this is Wenyeji TV.
Massive protected industrial development to create millions of sustainable jobs, including the introduction of minimum wage in order to close the wage gap between the rich and the poor, close the apartheid wage gap, and promote rapid career path from Africans for Africans in the workplace. Massive developments for the African economy and advocating for a move from reconciliation to justice in the entire continent. Open, accountable, corrupt-free government and society without fear of victimization by the state agencies. Over and above, pillars. The EFF commits to further pillars to complement the 7. They are equally important pillars and are presented here not in order of importance and vitality, but the recognition that they are equally important. We believe in decentralized spatial development and building new cities, public representatives using public services, reduction of benefits for public representatives, progressive internationalism, the development of sports, arts and culture, progressive views on the gender and sexuality question, meaning acceptance of different forms of gender and sexual expressions, considering the rise of right-wing politics, which form the basis of electoral opportunism all around the world and now in South Africa. The EFF has a progressive view on the immigration question, and we believe that we are all global citizens, especially in Africa, where borders were created from colonial conquest and divisions created in the Berlin Conference of 1884. As the EFF, we believe in monetary and fiscal stability, which is anchored on industrialization and deliberate state intervention in the economy. As many of you may know, South Africa is in the depth of an energy crisis, so one of the complementary pillars include prioritizing of energy, security, and the environment. We must take this opportunity here today to inform the international community that we are not party to the agreement made at the COP27, where the South African government conceded to an experimental exercise known as a just transition, which will result in the abandoning of a coal as an energy source in South Africa and the closure of our coal power stations. Additionally, in terms of complementary pillars, the EFF believes on a need for a keen focus on the development of science and technology as an anchor of development in Africa. We believe that there must be support given to research, innovation, and enterprise development. Understanding that South African spatial planning is rooted in colonial pacts and the sharing of our land by our conquerors, we believe in making one city the administration and legislative capital of South Africa. As things stand, our country's legislative capital sits in the city of Cape Town, while our administrative capital sits
on
in this
African
city of
leaders to
Tshwane
work
because of
together
colonial
to find
pact between
solutions.
the African and colonialist and
He will
British
also
settlers
likely highlight
colonialists.
Africa's specific
This must be
challenges,
reversed.
such as desertification,
Finally, we believe in the
drought,
transformation
and flooding.
of the criminal justice system.
Neobi's Africa
That our
Climate
correctional
Summit is
centers
being
must be
held under the
rehabilitated
theme
instead of
Adapting to
creating
Climate Change, a call for
West
action.
hardened criminals.
The
Members of
inaugural
diplomatic
African Summit
community
will develop strategies
we
to
could
mitigate
speak at
climate
length about
effects
our
ahead of the
organization, its history and its
2023
policies, but as you are all aware, we have a 10th anniversary rally at FNB Stadium, where we'll expand much deeper on who we are and what we stand for. We hope all of you will be in attendance to experience the Festival of the Poor. Fellow global citizens must, however, touch on some key international issues that require our attention, and first and foremost, we must speak about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. It must be understood that as the EFF, we believe that the conflict between these two nations must be resolved, and it must be resolved peacefully. We want to make it categorically clear, however, that we believe the conflict arises because of NATO's uncontrollable desire to infringe on the territorial integrity of Russia by setting up military capacity on its borders. That is the genesis of the conflict. It is the breaking of treaties that were adopted during the fall of the Soviet Union, and that must be condemned as much as we may condemn the war itself. We have noted the communication from Cyril Ramaphosa's office that Russia President Vladimir Putin will not attend the next month's BRICS summit in South Africa. It is our understanding that President Putin's withdrawal is a consequence of South Africa state's reluctance to be firm on international affairs and their inability to resist pressure from NATO to arrest President Putin. South Africa is at the current stage led by an individual who cannot take a firm position on any matter, even if his life
ofisi ya
depends
rais wa
on it.
nchi hiyo ilisema Alhamisi, siku chache baada
We
ya
therefore
bunge
want
kupokea ombi la
to
kupiga
caution all
marufuku
nations
jukwaa
represented here
maarufu la
today, especially members of BRICS, that South Africa is currently led by a spineless government that will never meaningfully take forward efforts to grow the strength of the global south and its allies.
Wagner founder and leader Yevgeny
Any
Prigozhin,
effort to fight against
along with some of his
imperialism,
top
the
officers,
calls for de-dollarization and for an alliance that will place BRICS nations on a stronger footing in the globe will always be undermined by
has a history
a
of
cowardly
political
government in
instability
South
and
Africa.
military coups.
Members of international
Since its
community,
independence from France in 1960, it has
hope
experienced
that
strife.
countries such as China and India will, in solidarity with President Putin, not
West,
allow their
especially
presidents
NATO,
to attend
over
the
the
BRICS
future of
summit.
Ukraine and its alignment
Because
with
what
either side,
South
the
Africa
personal
did to
ambitions and
President
motivations
Putin,
of Russian President
it's a
Vladimir
serious
Putin,
humiliation
who sees Ukraine
of a
as
sitting president. And in solidarity and as BRICS members, heads of states of those countries should also stay away from attending BRICS because South Africa's foreign policy and its sovereignty has been undermined by NATO forces and the USA. Members of the international community, we take this opportunity to call for a meaningful solidarity with Palestine. Under the EFF government, there will not be the Israeli embassy in South Africa until there is peace in Palestine. We must not just pay a lip service when people are dying in their numbers. The people of Palestine continue to suffer unspeakable human rights violations, and their land is annexed constantly. Their children are murdered, their sites to practice religion are destroyed, while the whole world watches. I say so
Here at
because
Wenyeji
we are the
TV, we are
beneficiaries of
dedicated to
international
bringing you
solidarity
in-depth
ourselves.
coverage of the latest news,
If there was no
events, and
international
stories from around the world. Our team of
support to
passionate
South
journalists,
Africa,
reporters,
we're not going to
and
be
documentary
where we are.
filmmakers
And this is our turn to also show support to all those who are being oppressed.
Here
by
at
other
Wenyeji
nations.
TV, we are dedicated
We
to bringing you
want
in-depth
the
coverage
people
of
of
the
Western
latest
Sahara
news, events,
to
and
have their
stories from
land
around
back
the world.
without any
Our team of
interference by Morocco. But Morocco and Western Sahara should exist as brothers and sisters and not see each other as enemies. We're asking for peace and long-lasting solution between Western Sahara and Morocco. And that peace should be
Bwana
characterized by the release
Musyoka
of the land of the people
aliteuliwa na
of
kuongoza
Western Sahara.
mazungumzo.
We must not fear intimidation or loss of funding simply because we are too scared to condemn the crimes against
Subscribers
the people
zaidi ya
who
2,000
violate the rights of others.
na wale wote
We want
wanaoendelea
to make the same call
kutizama
with regards to our friends and comrades
video
in Cuba who
zetu
suffer under
tunazoendelea.
the yoke of trade embargoes because they dare to be socialist. The trade embargoes against Cuba must be lifted, as it is inhuman to punish a nation for taking different ideological leaning with regard to how they run their society. The Cubans helped us fight for our liberation in Africa. They continue to help the whole world with quality healthcare interventions, and they don't send soldiers to go and bombard other people's nations. They send doctors to go and save life and make sure that our people receive the primary health care. We are calling for an end to ideologically inspired sanctions by nations in the West that are used as a tool to undermine the sovereignty of nations in the
Wenyeji
global
TV,
South
and I
and Africa.
am Mike James.
We call
Much
for
appreciation
lifting of
to our
sanctions
producer
in
James
Zimbabwe.
Wedeka. We are going to
Not that
teach
we
you something
agree with
interesting
the
and
people,
fun.
with the government of
How about
Zimbabwe,
learning some facts about
the president of Zimbabwe? But it is the people, the ordinary people of Zimbabwe, who are suffering under these sanctions. And we want the sanctions lifted. And we want the people of Zimbabwe, particularly those who are in South Africa, to return back to Zimbabwe and make their own determination as to how they want their country to succeed. But that country will never succeed under the sanctions. Africa has been independent for more than 60 years. Yet we experience challenges of development even after 6 years of independence. The Western countries cannot live without African continent, using our fellow African brothers to destroy ourselves. We want peace in Mali and welcome the dropping of French as an official language in Mali. That is one progressive movement. Doesn't mean French cannot be spoken. But to say we have conquered the imperialists and colonizers and continue to have their languages as official languages is self-imprisonment. We call for peace in the land of Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso, who paid the price of his own blood by the coup orchestrated by the Western. We call for peace in Sudan and reconciliation of the Sudanese people, who are tired to see the silence of the international community towards the continuous bloodshed in the eastern DRC.
Aliyehusishwa na
Western countries
serikali
supporting some neighboring countries in DRC
kwenye
to
mtandao
destabilize
ya
the
kijamii
eastern DRC.
kile kilichoonekana kuwa
We
ni
shouldn't find
barua
it exciting
kutoka kwa
that
wizara
African countries can fight amongst
kwenda
themselves with
kwa
ease,
tume kuu ya
especially
Uingereza
fighting
kutafuta usaidizi
around
wa visa
territorial
ya kuingia
expansions.
Uingereza ya
Africa is
wanafamilia
one country, it's not
16
even
wa
a
Kenyatta.
continent. These borders
Mwanablogu
we see
huyo
and we
alidai
experience here
katika
in our
chapisho
continent
la mtandao
were
wa
imposed on
kijamii
us
kwamba
by the
walikuwa
imperialists.
wakichukua likizo
No African
ili
brother
kujiepushwa
should
na shinikizo
derive
ambalo
pleasure
ni Kenya
out of killing other
kufuatia
African
usumbuvu
people.
dhidi ya familia
We say
yao.
this because
Wiki
we
iliyopita
are
rais
advocating for
huyo
one
wa
Africa
zamani
with one
alishutumu
currency,
serikali
with
kwa
one
kuiangaisha
legislature,
familia yake,
with one military and one president.
akiliambia vyombo vya
Because we
habari
believe
kuwa
that these
yuko
small
tayari
pockets
kuwalinda baada
of
ya
countries are the
jaribio
way
la maafisa wa
international communities undermine Africa. Just imagine one president of Russia or America calling all the presidents of all countries to their countries to be addressed by one president. We see that as belittling and undermining our continent. We believe that if we have one currency based on our mineral and natural resources, it will be one such a strong currency, and it will place Africa firmly on international table. Here in South Africa, you must be rest assured that next year we're going to elections and we're going to take power. And there is no coalition that is going to be formed because the EFF is going to be a government alone. We require no one to come and be part of us because the ANC is corrupt to the core and cannot be salvaged. DA is racist to the core and cannot be helped. And the rest of other political formations are formed by multinational companies to protect their interests in this country. It is the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, who put their money behind certain black faces to create an impression that there is an emerging alternative and sponsor those non-existing political parties with millions of money so that they can continue their control of South Africa. The EFF, since its formation, has never dropped. It is the only organization in South Africa that has been growing. And even the latest research shows that the EFF has surpassed the ANC in the Western Cape and in many other provinces of South Africa. So you can be rest assured, you are not talking to a government in waiting here today. You are talking to government in Ekurhuleni Metro. You are talking to government in Nelson Mandela Metro. You are talking to government in Johannesburg Metro. You are talking to government in eThekwini Metro. You are talking to government in Mohali City Municipality. So when we say to you that we are taking over government next year, it's not a rhetorical question. It is a clear declaration based on a scientific research conducted by people who are not aligned to the EFF. So next year, be rest assured that all of you who are here may be hosted in a different place just next door here, where the government sits. So we want to take this opportunity to really thank you for accepting our invitation and thank you for showing up this morning It has not been easy for us. We had our dinner last night. It has been a very busy week. And tomorrow we are at the FNB Stadium, and you are all invited. Thank you very much.
Malema lifatha lami kuwe ebazophela bani ngithi ngenawe enacho ngenawe enacho ngenawe.
Thank you very much, Commander-in-Chief and the President of Economic Freedom Fighters in Africa. The EFF is not only in South Africa, we have EFF in other countries in the continent. Some of them you'll see them tomorrow. And there is an EFF in Namibia which is already in Parliament. So it's a very radical and a growing organization which is resonating with a lot of people in the continent and the diaspora. Now we're going to move to our next item, which is question and answer session. I'm going to take 5 hands in the first round. We may ask any question or clarity or suggestion that you have. I'll take the first round. Looks like a president was very clear. Okay. On my right-hand side, the first table, 1. There was a hand. There was a hand somewhere here. Where was it? Where is number 2? There's number 2. Where is number 3? Number 3 is over here. Is there any other hand? Okay, let's move like that. Oh, number 4. Let's do this. You will be number 3 and you will be number 4 so that the mic moves seamlessly. Thank you very much, number 1.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Malema. I'm David Guy. I'm the Australian Deputy High Commissioner.
Country?
Australia.
Australia.
My question is, if you don't win a majority next year, what would your approach be to building coalitions?
Hey everybody, in this video tutorial, I'm going to show
Thank
you
you very
how
much.
to add
Number
multiple
2.
videos to YouTube playlist all at once with one process. Before the tutorial,
Thank you. My name is
make sure
Han
to check
Peters.
out
I'm
our
the
resources
ambassador
in
of the
the
Netherlands in this
description
country.
below. Free YouTube ebooks, customizable
I think without
YouTube
any doubt,
checklists,
the
exclusive
energy
software
crisis is
deals,
top
free
of mind
trial
for
offers for
most
YouTubers,
South Africans.
and many more resources.
So what's
that
the
help to
plan
grow
of
your
the
YouTube
EFF
channel, build a
for ending
business
load
on it,
shedding?
and make
Thank
more
you.
money from it.
Thank
now,
you very
back to the
much.
tutorial.
Number
Right, so if you want
3.
to add multiple videos to a playlist, to a YouTube playlist, all you have to do is open up YouTube Studio. So of course you can do this with
Mr.
your
President,
videos
my name
you
is
have
Håkan
created
Juhl,
and
the
uploaded
Swedish
to your
ambassador,
YouTube channel.
and
So sign into
since
YouTube
EFF
Studio,
is known
and
as
click
an
on the
international
content tab on the
movement,
left here,
I would
and
like to
select
know
the videos
more
you
about
want
your
to
closest
add to
ally
this
on the
playlist
European
by
and Asian
checking the
continents
boxes
when it comes
next
to
the
political
videos.
movements that you
You
share
can also click here
values
and
with.
it will select all of your YouTube videos that are currently
Thank
on
you
this
very
page.
much. You
And
may
to
move
add
over
all
to
of them to
number
a
4.
playlist, all you have to do is click on add to playlist
Thank you
here.
very much. First, I would like to thank the invitation that we got from the EFF. I'm Mandla Pangwa from the as an section of the 4th International. We're an international organization. My question is just, we've heard the CICs talking about the war that is happening, and currently in Africa, and our next door neighbor, we're having a war happening in Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, which at this moment we can say most of these countries that have come here, they are available there. They avail their military presence, of which it's 34 countries, and most of them are there as combating terrorism, yet we know that it's about economic freedom, because the youth of Cabo Delgado is fighting against the exclusion in terms of economic exclusion. But then I want to ask the EFF that how are they supporting that struggle? My second question is that yesterday we just had the Panya Panya moment, which was the Panyazing moment, which was promising young people stipends instead of permanent jobs and sustainability in the country. The third last question is that as the EFF is the most formidable organization, as the Fourth International, we have proven that through research and everything. How is it uniting the left? Because we know the left is arrogant and they living in their illusions, and we really plead with the EFF that can you really help them, because they haven't come up into terms with reality that the EFF is coming into power. And when we're in a government in waiting, you need to be very patient with these poor souls. How is the EFF going to garrison that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much. With regard to the coalitions, our preferred approach would have been that we should consolidate all the opposition parties and then establish a new government and remove the corrupt ANC, which has put us to where we are, all of us. But the problem is that you have an opposition parties that say we should come together to the exclusion of the EFF, and there's no reason why. Because we're not just saying we want to work with the opposition. We gave the opposition power in the metros in 2016 against the ANC. We're the ones who removed the ANC. That's how much we've demonstrated our commitment to bringing an alternative government in South Africa. But the oppositions, when it was now the turn to include the EFF, they excluded the EFF. And worse at the local level, because at the local level, it's not more about ideological questions. It's more about service delivery to our people. We can be Marxist and Leninist, can be right or left, but when people need clean water, it has got nothing to do with ideological question. Deliver the water. And we are the only organization that have no public representatives that faces serious charges of corruption, of lack of integrity, of having sex in offices. None of our councillors has ever been found to have done that. You can't accuse us of having involved ourselves in any corrupt dealings in any municipality, yet we are not wanted. Why? So when you leave the EFF out, you leave it with no op. You are actually pushing it to the ANC when coalitions come. And that's why we've opted to engage in the concoction you see in Johannesburg, in Ekurhuleni and everywhere else, because the ANC said, come here. We said, no, we're not coming. We're bringing everyone who can work with you. We would rather work with you through other people, not you directly. And that's why we have not given that responsibility, which is a huge responsibility of mayorship, to the ANC. We'll rather give it to any other person other than the ANC. So we find ourselves in that situation. We can end load shedding in South Africa. Firstly, you have to fight corruption. Car power ships were signed a long time ago to come and intervene. But wives of ministers and ministers wanted to get their hands in those deals. And without them being involved, the deals fell flat. Mozambique has got a number of megawatts to provide to South Africa. As long as they don't have their hands in that, they will never approve of Mozambique's intervention to any additional megawatts to the grid. Is something positive to South Africa. And we are a nation with a serious crisis. We shouldn't even be thinking about ourselves as individuals. We should now be thinking about how do we get more energy into the grid, and not about more money to me and my family. the coal power stations that were decommissioned will recommission them. Because you can't decommission a power station for green energy that gives you less than what that power station was giving you. It's illogical. We are all for green. We are all for clean energy, but not at the detriment of the economy of South Africa. We cannot destroy our base to appease USA and the UK. If the green gives me 2,000 megawatts, whatever I'm going to decommission should be giving me 2,000 megawatts or even less. So I know I decommission this one, and the alternative is this one, and therefore I don't run short of what I'm requiring to sustain the economy of South Africa and to give our people a reliable electricity. So we also are going to stop this thing of taking out our clean energy, our clean coal to outside countries and leaving us here with a dirty coal and being told we are polluting. The pollution, whether it happens in China, whether it happens in the UK, whether it happens in Germany, whether it happens in the USA, is going to affect us even here in South Africa. So why is there a story that we must not use coal in South Africa, yet we see tons, millions and millions of tons being taken out of South Africa? Where are they going? The story should not be let's decommission coal power stations. The story should be coal because it's not clean and it's not good for the environment. Let's stop mining coal at all. So no one uses coal. It can't be that South Africa must not use coal, but other people are using coal. It's wrong. So there's no coal that is going to live here. We're going to make sure that we produce enough and reliable and clean coal, and we'll engage with our own allies in the form of China and all of to come with new technology to deal with emission. So we need to make sure that that which we say other people must not do, we don't do ourselves. Because to ask of us to self-destruct and use us as an experiment in exchange for money and to killing of our people, because this load shedding has killed a lot of people here in South Africa, has killed a lot of businesses here in South Africa, and you can all feel it. Yet, we must be the first ones to be used as an experiment. You need a very firm leadership that will prioritize the interest of the country before any other thing and not sell the country to the highest bidder. Our alliances are naturally the leftist countries. China is one of the countries we look up to. Cuba is one of the countries we look up to.
Their SEO to
and
grow their
Russia, we've got historical ties with it. We know that Putin is not at the left, but his attitude against imperialist forces finds resonance with the EFF, and those are the kind of people we'll rely on. BRICS is one such a structure that we regard very highly, and we see the emergence of BRICS as an alternative platform to engage in the geopolitics. And those are the type of progressive structures that the EFF will align with. We make no apology with our alliance with China, because we believe that China can help us, even with load shedding. We need a government that has got interests and that negotiate good terms and say to China, build it, operate it, and hand it over to South Africa. The Chinese will never refuse to do that. They've never refused to do that. But because we are hell-bent at our alliances with the West and America, we've missed opportunities to strengthen our own economy through fostering working relationship with countries that will not destroy us. China is not going to colonize Africa. The problem is your corrupt leaders who go to China with empty bags and come back with money. They want money and they negotiate with money in their mind. So you come to me like that, I will also dribble you. So go there with proper ideas, not with corrupt mentality. There's no China that wants to colonize anyone. How do you get colonized now when you are the negotiator? South Africa has surrendered a port now in Durban now. That's colonialism, where you just take your port and give it to other people, surrendering your sovereignty, and later you are going to say people have colonized you. When you go to China and say, give us a power station in exchange for OR Tambo Airport, why would they miss that opportunity? It's not them, it's your stupidity as leaders. There is no policy of China. We have gone through it many times that seeks to colonize anyone. But if people go there with better ideas, it's not a problem of China. It's their own problem. No socialist organization, and socialism teaches us that we can't engage in imperialist program. We can't engage in colonialist program. We intervene where necessary, and intervention does not mean interference. And that's what inspires that relationship with countries like China and Cuba too. The Cubans, you go to them, you seek solution, they will provide it. And then they don't say, give us this, give us that. It's South Africa that says, in exchange, we'll give you this. And when we give the Cubans the money that we are giving them, when we get accused, we over-explain ourselves that which we offered to the Cubans. The money to Cuba is not necessarily to pay for the doctors. It's a solidarity fund. We are in solidarity with Cuba and will double that money when we take over government. Because Cuba did not give us money. It gave us life. People died fighting for our democracy. Why should we be told by people who oppressed us that Cuba joined us to fight against how we must relate with Cuba? We cannot allow that. The war in Mozambique is exactly what I spoke about. But the problem, you are right, is this foreign interests that are interfering and even sponsoring the killing of each other in Mozambique. We should not, as Africans, anywhere, because we are rejected, we are hated everywhere. We should not find it easy to fight with each other. It must be the most painful and the most difficult thing for an African to take up guns and shoot at another African. Because if others can do it, they will do it with ease. It must be difficult for us. We are hated everywhere in the world. We are treated like we are not human beings. Why should we treat each other like that ourselves? That's why the EFF here in South Africa is told every time that we won't vote for you.
In this video, I want to show
because
you how to recover your
you want
account,
foreigners in our country, you protect foreigners in our country. So be it.
Is either hacked,
we're not going to kill Africans in exchange for votes. I will rather stay at home in the villages because that is not just us. So we are for Africans, and Africans everywhere must always find African solution to their problems without Sassol's interference, without France interference, without British interference. We need to sit down and find solutions of Africa by Africans.
For example,
and
when
not
you are
this
signing
broad
up for the WhatsApp, after you put your phone number, they will send
interference
a code
that we see
then
all
you
the
put that
time.
code. The next step, you
So
will see something like
we
what's on
are
your
aware
what
of
is
what's
the
happening
screen.
in Mozambique,
Two-step
and
verification.
we will
This
make sure
account
that
is protected
the
by
government of the
two-step
EFF
verification.
finds
Enter the PIN
an
you
African
created when you
solution
set up two-step verification.
which is going
Your PIN
and
is
not
different
driven
from
by foreign
your SMS
company or
registration
multinational
code.
companies' interests.
So you will see something like that.
Well,
so if you don't have the PIN or the hacker
Panyaza
has
is
put
doing what
something
he has to
has
do
put,
because he can see that
has said
the
verification
ANC is in
there,
danger.
you
He's
cannot- you
trying
don't know it, you can't
to
withdraw
save
seconds.
it. That is
The
an
solution
act
to it
of
is
desperation.
You have to click on forward PIN.
And
If you
it's
click
not
on the
just an
forward
act
PIN,
of
this is what will
desperation,
come,
but
and
also
then,
humiliation.
If you added an
You are
email
seeking a
address
job,
while
you are
setting
told to
up
come to the
two-step
stadium to come and
verification,
get
you
your
can reset your PIN via email. Alternatively,
your
in 5
appointment
hours,
letter. You
can
must all
reset
queue
your
there
WhatsApp account to continue without a PIN.
to get
Okay.
that.
So
It
what you will
doesn't.
do is
There's no Aina's
once
D,
you don't know
Mama,
the
doesn't
email,
have
you
dignity
just
in
have
it.
to,
Yeah, and I
just
think,
you
and
can
I'm
click
happy
on
you are
the
raising
send
it
email
because our
and you
people
can
should
wait.
see it
If
for
you
what it
wait
is. It's
for
an
up to
act of
5 hours,
desperation.
they will, when you,
The last kicks
in
of a
fact, when you
dying
wait for
horse.
up to 5 hours,
They are very dangerous.
between the from
That's
the,
why they are doing
from
what they
the
are
time
doing.
you
They
have
are
clicked
on their
forgot
way
pin
out,
up to the
and they will do
5 hours.
everything to
If you try
clinch
to
to
open the
power.
WhatsApp, it will be
But
like
it's
this.
too late
It will still
in the
ask you
day.
two-step
They are
verification.
out.
It
The
will be like this.
ANC
You cannot
rules
continue,
Gauteng
you can't
with
go back. So you just
50.1%
have
as
to
we
be
speak
there.
now.
But after 5 hours,
So they know
when you
that
come,
there is
it will open
nothing they
and
can
you
do
now set up your WhatsApp.
that will make
And then
them win the
also,
elections next year.
for some
So
people,
they are going around
WhatsApp, they
hiring
keep on
people,
updating their terms. So
and then the
sometimes
next
it used
thing,
to be
if they
7
don't
days,
give them stipend, even
sometimes
that
it's
stipend they are
5
not
hours.
getting.
So if you are lucky, and
Because there's a
within
huge
5 hours, you
fight
get
that
your
people have been
account
hired
back.
and they are not being
Now,
paid
there is
because
a
procedure is not
security
being
setting that
followed.
also allows
And
you,
because you don't follow
because
procedure,
you
you are going to humiliate
you
these
just have to
many
wait and be
young
patient.
people
After 5
who
hours,
are hungry
you
for
will be able
jobs.
to get back to your
The unity
account.
of the left
This
is very
exactly
paramount because
what you need
capital
to
is
do.
united.
So I will advise you that as a
Capital is
security
united
feature,
against the
if you don't
working
also
class,
have two-step
and the working
verification that
class
is set
should
on
come
your phone,
together.
you
The
have
left
to,
should come together. It's the business
set
of the
two-step
EFF to
verification so
unite
that
the left.
it will help
And we're
you,
going to be very patient with them because kancane kancane bayavela, they are coming through. They are coming to realize that the only way to get the leftist perspective taking over this country is through the EFF. And like you said, it's not an easy and ideological position. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of explanation. And we'll bring them together and ultimately will emerge and become a better country under the left forces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. I'm loving people today, and I will go for the second round, which is the last round of questions. We'll start on this side. On this table, you are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, 7, 8, like that, number 1. Yes. The mic is not on.
Thank you, President, and it was a pleasure to listen to you. My name is Andre Zapaike. I'm the ambassador of the Central African Republic and Dean of the African Heads of Mission in South Africa. I have just a few questions of clarification. As being African myself, I focus on African issues. Since I've been in this country now 9 years, I've seen some evolutions, particularly in the relationship between how foreigners are perceived. In this country, we have moved slowly, we have now gone to the Dudula movements and many other movements in this country. That's one thing. But also, President, we see also what's going on between Africans and dying in the sea and trying to cross the Mediterranean to go to Europe. So I don't know what really the EFF think about this situation of the internal relationship migration and also those trying to go to Europe. Now, when we see many countries we see that the president has been talking here about African unity, African one currency, one government, etc. But there have been very, very little progress made since the creation of the Organization of African Unity, now AU, etc. What is your view about the best thing that we have today that has brought us close to the dreams of our founding father, that is the African free trade area? If tomorrow EFF is in power, or just tell me what is your point of view of it, about this African free trade area. How can we make this work? I'm sure that you have an idea about it, because this is one thing that we have in hand that can really help the process of United Africa make a move. Also, President, people complain that the African Union doesn't work, and there are still weaknesses, etc. What do you think about it? How can we, today, what can we do to make African Union a strong institution that will lead the development of our continent? I think that is, for now, what I would like to hear from the President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 2.
Your Excellency, the Commander and President of the EFF, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, and the regional deans present. My name is Muhammad Haruna Manta. I'm the High Commissioner of Nigeria. My boss has taken the cell out of my ship, because the first question I had, I have just 2 questions, has been taken by him, because the President, in your address, you made no mention, I don't know if it's deliberate, of the AU, as well as the regional blocks, SADC, for instance, in addressing some of the ills, bedeviling the various regions. You did mention some of those forces that try to tear us apart, like it is in Mozambique, but you did not mention anything, whether SADC is doing anything at all, which you appreciate. I would love that you take another look at how the EFF will strengthen this regional organization, or whether or not the EFF does not see the value addition in the AU as well as SADC in the agenda you have for governance. The second question I wish to ask is, on the basis of economic integration, the world is seen as a global village. Whether from the west or from the east, the emphasis, I thought, for Africa should be who will be our trading partner, and not the very radical posture of the socialist concept, which probably was very relevant in the after the Berlin Conference, 1880-something, 1884-85. But today, we don't have colonialism to fight as such, because the whole of Africa has been decolonized. South Africa is independent, Namibia is independent, and so is the whole African continent, with the exception of probably some aggression against Western Sahara. So is it not time that EFF takes a posture that is more inclusive of development concepts, rather than imaginary fighting colonialists that do not exist in any way. Because the interest of the world is more virtually focused on how do I develop on an economic concept, how do I attract. Sometimes the development economists call it foreign direct investment, FDI. How do I attract that? So I would like to know what the EFF thinks about the economic integration of the African continent, as well as what the AU has done in promulgating or forming the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, as well as the 2063 agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 3.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Sani Bonani, Ninjani,
Siyaphila.
Morena Malena, Lekai.
Retain.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity.